to the Hudson's Bay Company. In 1870, the company relinquished its claims for £300,000, $1.5 million, assigning the vast territory to the Government of Canada. 18. Subsequently, the area was reorganized into the province of Manitoba and the Northwest Territories. 18. The Northwest Territories were vast at first, encompassing all of current northern and western Canada, except for the British holdings in the Arctic Islands and the colony of British Columbia. The territories also included the northern two-thirds of Ontario and Quebec, and almost all of present Manitoba, with the 1870 province of Manitoba originally being confined to a small area in the south of today's province. 19. The British claims to the Arctic Islands were transferred to Canada in 1880, adding to the size of Northwest Territories. 1898 saw the Yukon Territory, later renamed simply as Yukon in 2003, carved from the parts of the Northwest Territories surrounding the Klondike gold fields. On the 1st of September, 1905, a portion of the Northwest Territories south of the 60th parallel north became the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan. 19. In 1912, the boundaries of Quebec, Ontario, and Manitoba were expanded northward, Manitoba's to the 60 degrees parallel, Ontario's to Hudson Bay, and Quebec's to encompass the district of Ungava. 20. In 1869, the people of Newfoundland voted to remain a British colony over fears that taxes would increase with Confederation, and that the economic policy of the Canadian government would favor mainland industries. 21. In 1907, Newfoundland acquired Dominion status. 22. In the middle of the Great Depression in Canada, with Newfoundland facing a prolonged period of economic crisis, the legislature turned over political control to the Newfoundland Commission of Government in 1933. 23. Following Canada's participation in World War II, in a 1948 referendum, a narrow majority of Newfoundland citizens voted to join the Confederation, and on the 31st of March, 1949, Newfoundland became Canada's 10th province. 24. In 2001, it was officially renamed Newfoundland and Labrador. 25. Bermuda, the last British North American colony. 26, 27, 28, 29, which had been somewhat subordinated to Nova Scotia, was one of two imperial fortress colonies in British North America, the other being Nova Scotia, and more particularly the city of Halifax. 30, 31. Halifax and Bermuda were the sites of the Royal Navy's North America Station, or, depending on the time period and the extent of the Western Hemisphere, it included the River St. Lawrence and Coast of America and North America and West Indies Station, the North America and Newfoundland Station, the North America and West Indies Station, and finally the America and West Indies Station, main bases, dockyards, and admiralty houses, and the Squadron of Station was based at Royal Naval Dockyard, Halifax during the summers and Royal Naval Dockyard Bermuda in the winters till the 1820s, when Bermuda, which was better located to control the Atlantic seaboard of the United States, impossible to attack over land, and almost impregnable against attack over water, became the main base year-round. 32, 33, 34, 35, a large British Army garrison in Bermuda, which fell under the Commander-in-Chief in Nova Scotia, existed to defend the colony as a naval base, and to prevent it becoming as useful a base to the navy of an adversary, as well as to support amphibious operations throughout the region, such as the Chesapeake campaign during the American War of 1812. 36, 37. Bermuda was consequently the most important British naval and military base in the Americas. 38, 39. Canadian Confederation resulted in the Canadian militia becoming responsible for the defense of Maritimes. the abolishment of the British Army's commander-in-chief there, and the reduction of British military forces in the Maritimes to a small garrison for the protection of the Halifax dockyard, which would be withdrawn when that dockyard was handed over to the Dominion government in 1905 for use by the new Canadian Naval Service. Britain retained control of Bermuda as an imperial fortress, with the governor and commander-in-chief of Bermuda, a military officer previously ranking between lieutenant colonel and major general, becoming a lieutenant general termed a general officer commanding, and the Bermuda garrison becoming a command in its own right. 40, 41, 42, 43. Bermuda was consequently left out of the Confederation of Canada, though it retained naval links with Halifax and the state church, or established church, the Church of England, continued to place Bermuda under the Bishop of Newfoundland until 1919. Bermuda also remained linked to the Maritimes under the Methodist and Roman Catholic churches. 44, 45, 46, 47.
Yes.
In 1903, resolution of the Alaska Panhandle dispute fixed British Columbia's northwestern boundary. 48. This was...
Don't know what they're doing. Yes, break. I need something to drink. And I have some videos I need to put public. Dennis video 2. This could take like 1 hour more to read all this. No, I think I should read about Ontario, but maybe not now. I will need to get back to and need to make a read list. Own read list about Canada. I have to do that later. I like to go back to the United States, North America, the Old West, and the Indians Wars, and the old railroads there. So I have to go back to that, and the Harz Mountain. The Harz Mountain in Germany. I was reading about that. I like to get back to this. I have to get back to Canada later. I will read the Canada PDF, but not the next many weeks. But Canada, that's a lot north. It's so much north, like cold and snow in the winter. But that's maybe less crime compared to the United States. I think Canada is much like my country, Denmark. Yes, put some videos public. And my Danish video, I need not takes a long time, but there's 6 videos and it take 20 seconds each. That's 3 minutes. Yes, I need to add my Danish video to playlists. Yes, let's add the English 569. Yes, I had to work like a robot because I have many thousand, many hundreds of videos. I have many hundred playlists, so I had to do like this because I will forget to add videos to my playlists. Yes, let's continue. No, I have 25,000 videos soon. I made on 8 years. So now it's 3:30, 3:40 p.m., soon 4 p.m. So cannot finish all this today. Continue.
One of only 2 provinces in Canadian history to have its size reduced. The second reduction, in 1927, occurred when a boundary dispute between Canada and the Dominion of Newfoundland saw Labrador enlarged at Quebec's expense. This land returned to Canada, as part of the province of Newfoundland, in 1949. In 1999 Nunavut was created from the eastern portion of the Northwest Territories. 50. Yukon lies in the western portion of northern Canada, while Nunavut is in east. 51. All 3 territories combined are the most sparsely populated region in Canada, covering 3,921,739 km to 1,514,192 square mi in land area. 5. They are often referred to as a single region, the North, for organizational and economic purposes. 52. For much of the Northwest Territories' early history it was divided into several districts for ease of administration. 53. The district of Keewatin was created as a separate territory from 1876 to 1905, after which, as the Keewatin region, it became an administrative district of the Northwest Territories. 54. In 1999, it was dissolved when it became part of Nunavut. Government. Theoretically, provinces have a great deal of power relative to the federal government, with jurisdiction over many public goods such as health care, education, welfare, and intra-provincial transportation. 55. They receive transfer payments from the federal government to pay for these, as well as exacting their own taxes. 56. In practice, however, the federal government can use these transfer payments to influence these provincial areas. For instance, in order to receive healthcare funding under Medicare, provinces must agree to meet certain federal mandates, such as universal access to required medical treatment. 56. Provincial and territorial legislatures have no second chamber like the Canadian Senate. Originally, most provinces had such bodies, known as legislative councils, with members titled councillors. These upper houses were abolished one by one, Quebec's being the last in 1968. 57. In most provinces, the single house of the legislature is known as the Legislative Assembly. The exceptions are Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador, where the chamber is called the House of Assembly, and Quebec where it is called the National Assembly. 58. Ontario has a legislative assembly but its members are called members of the provincial parliament or MPPs. 59. The legislative assemblies use a procedure similar to that of the House of Commons of Canada. The head of government of each province, called the Premier, is generally the head of the party with the most seats. 60. This is also the case in Yukon, but the Northwest Territories and Nunavut have no political parties at the territorial level. 61. The Queen's representative in each province is the Lieutenant Governor. 62. In each of the territories there is an analogous commissioner, but they represent the federal government rather than the monarch. 63. Federal, provincial, and territorial. Terminology. Compare jurisdiction. Legislature. Lower House. Members of Lower House. Superior Court. Head of Government. Viceroy. Canada. Parliament. House of Commons. Member of Parliament. Federal Court. Prime Minister. Governor General. Ontario Legislative Assembly. Member of the Provincial Parliament. A. Superior Court. Office de Premier. B. Lieutenant Governor. Quebec Legislature. National Assembly. C. Member of the National Assembly. C. Superior Court. Nova Scotia General Assembly. House of Assembly. Member of the Legislative Assembly. Supreme Court. Newfoundland and Labrador. Member of the House of Assembly. Prince Edward Island Legislative Assembly. D. Member of the Legislative Assembly. D. New Brunswick, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta Legislature. Legislative Assembly. Member of the Legislative Assembly. Court of Queen's Bench. British Columbia Supreme Court. Northwest Territories Assembly. Commissioner. Yukon Legislature. Nunavut Assembly. Court of Justice. A. Members were previously titled Member of the Legislative Assembly. B. In Northwest Territories and Yukon the head of government was previously titled Government Leader. C. Quebec's lower house was previously called the Legislative Assembly with members titled Member of the Legislative Assembly. The name was changed at the same time Quebec's upper house was abolished. D. Prince Edward Island's lower house was previously called the House of Assembly and its members were titled Assemblymen. After the abolition of its upper house, Assemblymen and councillors both sat in the renamed Legislative Assembly. Later, this practice was abolished so that all members would be titled Member of the Legislative Assembly. Provincial Legislature Buildings. Alberta Legislature Building. Alberta Legislature Building. British Columbia Parliament Buildings. British Columbia Parliament Buildings. Manitoba Legislative Building. Manitoba Legislative Building. New Brunswick Legislative Building. New Brunswick Legislative Building. Newfoundland and Labrador Confederation Building. Newfoundland and Labrador Confederation Building. Nova Scotia Province House. Nova Scotia Province House. Ontario Legislative Building. Ontario Legislative Building. Prince Edward Island Province House. Prince Edward Island Province House. Quebec Parliament Building. Quebec Parliament Building. Saskatchewan Legislative Building. Saskatchewan Legislative Building. Territorial Legislature Buildings. Northwest Territories Legislative Building. Northwest Territories Legislative Building. Nunavut Legislative Building. Nunavut Legislative Building. Yukon Legislative Building. Yukon Legislative Building. Provincial political parties. Most provinces have rough provincial counterparts to major federal parties. However, these provincial parties are not usually formally linked to the federal parties that share the same name. 64. For example, no provincial conservative or progressive conservative party shares an organizational link to Federal Conservative Party of Canada, and neither do provincial Green parties to the Green Party of Canada. Provincial New Democratic parties, on the other hand, are fully integrated with the Federal New Democratic Party, meaning that provincial parties effectively operate as sections, with common membership, of the Federal Party. The Liberal Party of Canada shares such an organizational integration with Atlantic Canada Provincial Liberals in New Brunswick, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. Other provincial